everyone. Welcome to another episode. I'm super excited of Empowerment TV. Woo, woo, woo. So listen, y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Janelle Jones. I am your life coach, your therapist, your author, and your TEDx speaker. And today I am super duper. I know I say that every time, but seriously, I be having the dopest guests on here. So we ain't gonna lie, they dope in what they do. So today we have a very, very special guest that's so dear to my heart. I'm telling y'all the truth. I love her. Not only is she an important and amazing person in society dealing with you and your children, but also she's my friend. So I'm super excited to have her here. So today we're going to talk about the power of emotional intelligence, how emotionally mature parents cultivate success in their children. So we are going to welcome Miss Chelsea Elliott. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to tell you more about Chelsea, and then we're going to dig right into our topic today. So Chelsea is an enthusiastic speaker, emotional intelligence expert, children's author, and innovator. Her practical approach to communicating and connecting with kids is based on understanding how to handle our children's emotions and behaviors by understanding ourselves on a deeper level. Chelsea uses her childhood experiences, mental health journey, work with students, and life with her husband and 2 kids to share messages of hope and inspiration with children, teen, and adults alike. Her work has been featured on the Today Show, Parents Magazine, Good Housekeeping, Care.com, and many other outlets. Chelsea is a certified emotional intelligence coach and holds a master's degree in social work from Boston College and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Cincinnati. So let's give a big round of applause for Chelsea. I am super duper excited to have you. I really am. I know I've been kind of waiting for this interview because I think it's super important for parents alike. And with this show, we really highlight, your authenticity, your power, and your purpose. And one of the things I know is that when we are authentic in ourselves, we are able to really pass that down to our children. Yeah. But the first question I have for you, because this is such a really interesting, heavy, much needed topic, is how did you begin this journey with your own life? Tell us your story of how you got here.
Yeah, so it's so funny. People always ask me oh, what made you start your business? And I feel like I could never just say oh, it was just this one thing. It was my entire life from my childhood until now. So when I was growing up, when my grandparents got sick in Ohio, we lived in California. And my mom flew out to take care of him. And then me and my sisters, I have 3 sisters, we all came out, and my dad stayed in California. And we thought we were going to go back home. Nobody knew what was going on. Now that I'm an adult, I understand how confusing all of this was. But as a kid, I'm just okay, I want to go home. I want to go home. Oh, there's snow outside now. Okay. Oh, we're enrolled in school. Oh, life is happening. Oh, we can't go back for Thanksgiving. Oh, okay. And so we kept being told yeah, you'll get to go back. And I still haven't been back to California. So it was a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, a lot of grief. My father ended up passing away while he was still out there. And there was just a lot that was happening so suddenly, not knowing if my grandpa was going to live. He ended up living for 21 years. That was amazing. But not knowing what was happening, what was coming up, just having no control in any part of my life was really scary. And so then I was just this really emotional child anyway. I remember having panic attacks and anxiety attacks as a kid. I had migraines a lot. I was just really sick, a lot of stomach problems, all from, just not knowing my emotions or how to express how I was actually feeling. And I knew, I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Everyone's already going through so much, so I don't want to be a part of that. So I just learned to bury it and, find different ways. So I practiced self-harming behaviors and struggled with suicidal thoughts. And I had anxiety really bad, really, really bad anxiety when I was a kid, really depressed, and just a lot of heaviness in me, eating disorders, just all kinds of stuff. And so, nobody knew what to do with that. They didn't know what to do with me. I hid a lot of what I was doing because I didn't want to, again, be a burden to anybody. but nobody ever said it's okay that you feel the way you feel. Like, you have this big move, you had this huge situation happen to you, and it's okay for you to cry and for you to grieve, the loss of your friends and your old life. Like, that's okay. We were living it up in California, and then we come to
Wow.
Ohio, and just start all over. So it was really traumatic and really scary. My mom did a bomb job with everything that she did for her 4 children. Like, she's still amazing. But it was a lot. It was a lot for all of us. And we all handled things in a very different way. And my way was to hurt myself and to try to be everything for everybody so that, I can bring some peace to an environment. But that put a lot of heaviness on myself. And so as I got older, I went to college, and I finally was able to find a therapist and get on medication and get the diagnoses and all the things that I wish I had done when I was a little kid so that I could be better. So then I decided to get a degree in psychology. And at the time I was like, why am I even doing this? Why did I switch from what I wanted to do for so long to psychology? And then I got into a master's program for social work. And I was like, what is social work? What is macro social work? What is Boston College? What am I doing? Like, what? So then the whole time I'm there, I'm crying to my teachers, like, why am I here? What am I doing? The whole time, I'm like, what is social innovation? What is this? And now I get to see all of the things that I went through in my life play out in the work that I get to do with kids and the advocating I get to do for kids and the connections that I have with parents and educators. And, I understand your perspective as an adult, but I get their side, and I'm going to explain it to you so that you can stop being so hard on them for being human, for having real feelings. So that's my story in a nutshell. It was all very confusing, and I questioned every single thing that happened to me, but God knew exactly what he was doing, and it's all put together now.
That's awesome to say, like, I was taking these steps unbeknownst to me.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Right?
Like, what am I doing? What is that? What? Where am I going? Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for me, like, hearing your story, I'm going back to, and I know that we're both in the mental health field, and we always have these conversations on the side where, we're talking about little Chelsea. We hear a lot of people reference, okay, let's talk to the little girl you or the little boy you. Like, if you were able to go back to that person, what would you say to them? And it almost seemed like you are doing that with other children, right? Like, you're able to say, okay, if this is what little Chelsea needed, right? And because you were able to recognize what little Chelsea needed, you're now helping be an advocate for children who represent little Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like little Chelsea gets to yell at the adults the way that she wished she could when she was little. Like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to talk to them like that. There's a better way.
Talk to us about that. Like, I had this event, and one of the things, the questions was, if you could change anything, right, about being a mother, like, what would that be? And I was like, man, I really wish I would have took the time to get to know me and understand me, because I wasn't, healed, right? I didn't know that, well, I kind of knew that, but the brokenness was very present, trying to raise children, right? Short, my attention is short, and, I'm spazzing, and I'm not like going down to their level. Tell us, why is that important? We talk about emotional intelligence. First, I want you to tell us more about, why is emotional intelligence important in parenting, and then how, like, we can help our children or ourselves with dealing with our children with emotional intelligence.
So it's really difficult for us to relate to our kids if we are always dysregulated. And so being emotionally intelligent means that you understand, like, you're aware of your emotions, you're able to manage them, you're aware of other people's emotions, and you're able to manage the relationship that you have with them in a healthy way. And if we don't have emotional intelligence, or we don't have a high emotional intelligence, also called EQ, so I'm gonna probably say EQ a few times, that it's hard for us to understand what we're feeling. And if you don't know what you're feeling, then it's hard for you to manage that feeling. And if you can't manage that feeling and somebody triggers you in some way, then you're going to be off the wall. Like that happens a lot. And parenting, that's like 90% of parenting. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I am constantly like, oh my gosh, stop doing that. Don't do that. Stop it. Stop it. No, no, no. But instead of doing that, because, I've worked on this for so long and I work on their emotional intelligence too, we all have a better understanding of how to communicate that better. And the higher your EQ is, the better you're able to communicate and connect with the people around you. So for kids, if they are throwing a tantrum a lot of the time, they don't know how they're feeling inside. If they don't know how they're feeling inside, they don't know how to relay that. They just know they don't like that feeling. So they're going to kick and scream. And if you can give them words for that and give them some techniques and strategies for that, then they can work with it. And they're going to reduce those behaviors. But if you are throwing a tantrum, adult tantrum looks different than a kid tantrum, but they're the same thing. If you're constantly throwing a tantrum, they're going to learn from that behavior because they're learning from what we do all day, every day. If you're yelling and shouting for them to stop yelling and shouting is effective. So I'm going to yell and shout. If you're hitting them to tell them to stop hitting people, they're going to know that hitting is effective. So they're going to hit people. And if you find yourself constantly punishing your kids for the same behaviors, they're not learning to not do that. They're not learning from what you're teaching them in that moment. So it's more important to model that. And that comes from us a lot of times reparenting ourselves and unlearning so many things that our parents instilled in us when they were in panic mode and raising us out of complete fear and anxiety, but they didn't have the words for that either. So we have to start from zero with ourselves while we're raising our own kids, but it is so beneficial for us and for them. It makes life so much calmer and so much more peaceful for everyone, including yourself. But if you want to stay in that same place because it's too hard for you to talk about these things, or it's too scary, you don't want to readdress it, that's going to stay in you. And that gets passed down through your bloodline, and it gets passed in your family. And that becomes a generational, negative generational cycle. I don't like to use the word curse, but it becomes a negative generational cycle that somebody has to break at some point. So why not you?
Yeah. It's so good because when you start talking, my mind just started going all the way back to generations. Like if we look at generations, got the millennials, I'm starting with the millennials and Gen X. Then you got the baby boomers, then you got the silent generation. And if you look at the generations, they, when we talk about like mental health or even EQ, this stuff is kind of new. Like this stuff is really new. And so our parents, if you're like in this space, a lot of our parents did not have the tools. For me, my mom was in a silent generation. So it was like, ain't nobody talking about no mental, ain't nobody talking. Right. That's why it was called the silent generation. So if whatever you were dealing with, it was always used to cope a different way. And I know my family used like negative coping skills, like drinking or substance abuse, to kind of help regulate their emotions or numbing their emotions. Right. And so now we're in a space of where it's becoming more prevalent in our society, but we're dealing with the people who are still, have untreated trauma. Right. Or whatever that's happened. And I think you have a good point where it's like, you're acting this way and you're telling your children not to act like you. And the reality of it is kids don't learn by what you say. Right. They learn by what you do. And a lot of us aren't being honest with ourselves and understanding how, we are being triggered and how we're displaying behaviors, that are not healthy. And I'm gonna give you an example because I want you to really dive into this. Me and my family, Maurice, Destiny. So me, my kids, and Bruce went to have a breakfast one day. Father's Day actually was just, last week. And we're sitting there and something the communication is kind of off, everybody kind of getting into their feelings. And I'm looking at that my daughter, she shuts down. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's acting like me. Right. Yeah. She's trying to talk. She's not being heard. She shuts down. Yep. She's done. And I'm like, and it had me thinking all day, like Janelle, it was like so similar. And it was just like, this is not being emotionally intelligent. Like stonewalling and shutting down is not the way to do it. So I'm glad that you really approached that. Now, talk to me about with you as a child, you're going through a lot of mental health stuff that, people are not, you're not sharing, but, you're feeling like a burden. But tell me, when it comes to that, what is an important way for parents to really identify, how they are displaying emotional immaturity toward their children? Like, how is there a way to say, this is how you're not, this is emotionally immature?
If they find themselves yelling or being vindictive towards their kids, and I know a lot of people wouldn't want to use that word about themselves, but being jealous of their child, trying to take revenge, like, oh, you did this to me, so I'm gonna get you back. That is very emotionally immature. If you find yourself wanting to like do the tit for tat thing, my kid did this, so I'm gonna take their game system away, or I'm gonna take away a privilege because I can, because I'm the adult. That's emotionally immature. Very much so.
Listen, that's like, okay, I want you to talk more about this. You said something so profound to me. Okay, people don't think they're being this way. Don't think they're being vindictive or tit for tat or revengeful to their children. How common is that? Like, how often do you see people like, I'm just trying to like teach them this, but really like, it's like, no, you're being away. And I know you work with children in school settings and different settings. Like, is that something you see common where adults deny?
I literally had this conversation yesterday with a parent, and I was like, you're negotiating. What was the word that we used? It wasn't negotiating. Kind of like bargaining, maybe. Like, if you do this, I'll give you that. If you do this, I'll give you that. And her child's identity has become his behavior. And it is so sad because this kid is so sweet. Every single time he sees me, he gives me a hug. He can't wait to give me a hug. He is such a sweetie pie. But every single time I see him, his behavior is being discussed every time without fail. And I told his mom, you're doing this. I know that you don't want it. She's like, yeah, I see people do it like with candy or with treats or with this and that. And I'm not trying to do that. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I see that that's what I'm doing. And I was like, yeah, we're not trying to do these things. Like, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm just trying to teach you, but you're using a punishment. Yeah. And so you got to call it what it is. That's the only way for you to grow from it. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like you're a bad person because you're doing this. And that's a lot of why parents do the things they do, because of the judgment. And they're so afraid that people are going to see them or see their child as a certain way. So they want their kid to be this perfect thing that's completely outside of who they actually are. So instead of putting them in situations that enhance who they are and that celebrate and support them where they are, they have them in whatever and expect them to just fall in line. And then they act up because why not? Because they don't want to be there. Because I have kids tell me all the time, I'm bored when they're in my classes. And I'm like, okay, well, let's change it up. Let's try something else. I'm not going to get offended because a kid says they're bored in my presence. That's okay. It's okay for you to feel bored. And thank you for telling me that instead of running around the room to try to find something else to do. Let's work on it together. And I deal with that with my own kids, but you got to call these things out for what they are. And you have to remove yourself from their feelings and from that situation that they're experiencing, because it's not about you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's what we end up doing. Oh, they're sad today and that's all my fault. I need to do something to make them happy. So I'm going to give them the world and I have to do this and do that and do this. No, it's okay for them to feel that way. It has nothing to do with you. They need to learn how to work through those things. We have to remove ourselves from our children's experiences so that they can have their own lives. But if we're constantly trying to prevent situations that are not happening for them, or constantly trying to, save them from themselves or from failure. Oh my gosh, trying to save them from failure. So you're doing their homework, or you're going to job interviews with them, or taking on stuff that they should be doing themselves. You are causing failure in their lives. But you're so afraid of that failure because you didn't like how it felt for yourself, that instead of teaching them how to deal with it, you want to prevent it. So then they grow up needing you at every single turn, and then you resent that. But you caused that. So
girl, let me get my collection plate. Let me get my.
I always say, pass the cash out.
You
got a collection plate.
Here's my collection plate, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm telling you, so much is going through my mind as you're saying this, and I want you to kind of like really dissect this a little bit more. One of the things that you said that was really profound to me is it's not about our kids. We make it about us. If they're not doing something right, something's off, something is kind of like not the right way, we internalize that as an issue with us. We don't look at it like, our kids need or our kids do X, Y, and Z or A, B, and C, right? It's something within us which makes us angry or resentful, or it's like a negative emotion. So then we take it out on our kids. You didn't do this right, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me, like, I know you have to see that, like, a lot. Like, I mean, I know you just mentioned you're one student, but like, just how parents get so like offended or in their feelings because they feel like their children aren't doing what they want them to do, as opposed to really getting down to see what their children need from them.
Mm-hmm. So like when, God, the first example that popped in my head is a kid in church getting a spanking or a whooping because they're acting out in church. Church is boring for children. It's long for adults. It's boring for kids.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to find some way to have their own fun. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen kids get whooped in church when I was little because they would not sit still.
Mm-hmm.
Kids were not meant to sit still.
Mm-mm.
The kids in the grocery store, they're kicking and screaming because marketers have literally, companies pay millions of dollars for their products to be at eye level for children. It works. The marketing tactic works. The kids want the things.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to act out in the grocery store, give them something. Either buy something for them or give them something. You're not rewarding. Oh, this is another conversation that I have with a lot of parents too. You're not rewarding bad behavior by allowing your child to do something after they've acted out. You are celebrating them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You are looking at their humanity and saying, I love you. And here is something that I want to give you, or here we can do something together because I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like your behavior, but I love you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to deal with this behavior over here, but you are not your behavior. And so I'm going to celebrate you as a person. I'm going to allow you to have Christmas. I'm not going to take away, the fun Easter baskets because you hit your sister yesterday, because you see me hit your children, your siblings. Like, it's so challenging because people feel like they have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just let this go. I have to do something. But if what you're doing is damaging, then that something should not be done.
Mm-hmm.
So another example is sticker charts in school. I despise sticker charts. I hate them with every ounce of my being. I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
All they do is cause anxiety in children because they need to be perfect all day long. And the moment that they're not, oh my gosh, they're going to take my sticker away. They're going to move me down the cliff. They're going to put me in the yellow and then the red. And oh my God. And then they stop caring because what's the point? What's the point? It will work for maybe a week at most. After that, it's just making the kids feel bad. But you feel like you have to do something. That's just one thing that I know for a fact I can do. But if you're literally seeing something on fire and you feel like you have to do something and you pour fire on top of that fire, you're not helping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not helping.
This is so good. So because every time we talk, I have some imagery going on in the back of my mind. Because one of the things, like when it's coming to the children and the charts, I'm dealing with adults on the other end that has performance-based issues, right? Yeah. So now I'm dealing with the adults who come in and say, I can't, when I don't perform, whatever, in any aspect of their life, it could be the gym, right? If I'm not performing at perfection level, right, then something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
Right? Like they equate their performance with love.
Yeah.
And I think so that's why it's very important for you to say, let's separate the two. Your behavior does not mean this is who you are. I may not like your behavior. However, I love you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not an out, because that's a learned behavior. So in your mind, you feel like if I don't do something, they're gonna take advantage. That's what it is, feeling like they're gonna take advantage of me, or they're gonna get away with this. So I gotta do something to kind of stop that. And there's ways that you can create like a responsible child without feeling like I'm gonna have to implement this major thing, or else they're gonna try to think, they gotta do X, Y, and Z. But I'm on the flip side dealing with adults who is struggling with performance. Like, if I don't perform well, and I'm not talking about if I don't perform at perfectionism, I'm not talking about well.
Yeah.
If I'm not like up here with it, then everything else just goes by the wayside. And that then affects them internally, which lower their self-esteem, which makes them feel invaluable, which makes them feel they're not deserving, because they feel like they cannot perform. And you cannot equate the two.
Yeah. I've spent a majority of my life seeking that perfectionism. And we worked together when I was dealing with that too. I feel like maybe in the last couple of years, I've been like, okay, I can let some of that go a little bit.
Yes.
A little bit. But perfectionism is so toxic. And it's so like, there is nothing good about, we don't use the P word in our house. Like I call it the P word. We don't use that word in our house. Nothing is perfect. So I'm not going to say, oh, that's perfect. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
No. And if I do, I'm like, okay, I don't use this word, but you did a really, really great job. And my daughter even says it. Mommy, we don't use the P word, right? We don't. We don't. Because I'm not going to have you thinking that if you didn't do this exactly unrealistically well, then you failed. I'm not going to have you feeling that way.
Yeah. I like how you said unrealistically.
That's what it is. That's what perfectionism is. So when I think of perfect, I think of like an AI generated or a digitized something that is like perfect circles or perfect lines and everything is in absolute order and place. That is perfection. That doesn't exist in reality at all. And for the longest, I didn't know what to call what else it could be, like what you could be seeking. But in therapy, I learned being exceptional. And I was like, that sounds like, like on Talladega Nights, if you ain't first, you're last, right? Like, if it's not perfect, then it's a wash. Like, get rid of it. I don't care.
Yeah.
That causes you to grow up thinking that you can't get certain jobs because you don't know every single aspect of the job. So then you're working in these lower level positions because you know how to do that, but you refuse to challenge yourself. And kids, that's them not wanting to try new sports because they don't, I don't know how to play that right now. Well, you're not going to learn if you don't get out there and try. Well, I'm not going to try because I'm not going to be perfect. That's what that looks like. And it's so toxic and it's so draining and it just sucks the life out of you. And it wastes so much time and energy because you're seeking something that does not exist. I have to be this all-knowing being in order for me to ask for a 5% raise. What? No, but that's taught as a kid. And making those changes in your family, if you're not already on this path to doing that, it is not something that has to be called out every time it happens and celebrated with this big thing. It is just incremental, small changes. And it's hard because you won't see the results of that. The work I do is very hard because you don't see the results immediately.
Yeah.
But you start to hear it in the way that the kids talk to you. And you start to hear it when you're not yelling anymore. And you're like, this would have taken me over the edge before. But now I'm like, I spoke calmly to them about this. And you start to see it periodically. But once you make it a part of your family's culture and a part of what you do and just how you all operate, that's it. That's all it takes. It doesn't have to be like, oh, we're switching everything over. No, just stop yelling. Just lower your voice when you're talking for a minute. I taught one of my friends, this was so ridiculous, but I don't know if you've seen Zootopia. I love all the kid movies. At the BMV, they have all the slots because, the joke is it takes so long to get through the BMV. And so I talk to my kids when I'm really mad in a sloth voice. And I will talk like this until everybody calms down. And then they start cracking up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how much longer can I do this? Like, can I really keep going like this? And then I'm calmer. And then we can all start talking. And they absolutely love it. It's kind of like a joke with them, but they know like, oh, mommy's trying to chill out. You know, she's trying to keep calm. So maybe we should stop what we're doing. And then talking in a whisper voice, because then they're like, wait, what? What do you say? Are you talking to me? Are you saying something? And then they stop talking and they start to listen. But those two things are really, really helpful for yourself to calm yourself down and get back regulated while you're trying to, you know, be in the midst of a chaotic situation, and for your kids to also learn how to calm down and slow down in those moments too. But it's all about co-regulation and teaching them through modeling, but you have to be the one to start it. I get a lot of parents that are like, well, I need you to fix my kid first. No, they got this behavior from somewhere and I'm gonna find out. We're gonna work at the top first. It has to be top down.
You know, when you say that, I'm thinking, how many times do we have the parents shoving kids into therapy or, you know, all this extra stuff? And there's nothing wrong with putting your kid in therapy. We're just saying, but what if you're the root cause?
Yeah. What are you doing to rectify this situation as well? Because something that I tell everybody now, I cannot teach kids without teaching the adults. I cannot teach them to advocate for themselves when the adults around them see that as back talk. That's counterintuitive to what I'm trying to do and what you are expecting from them. You want them to be confident. You want them to be strong. You want them to speak up for themselves, but they're not allowed to do that with you. They have to practice it somewhere.
Yes. Talk to me. Like
they have to practice it somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm saying that because like, that is something that was like instilled like into my brain. Like if you said anything to a child, like if a child expressed themselves to you, if they say anything that was considered back talk, it was, and that's how we grew up. Like if you say anything that felt contradictory to an adult, you were in trouble.
Yes.
And we have a lot of people, and I was one of those people who grew up and they're silent because they were taught that if they spoke up about how they felt, then they were going to get in trouble for it. Like it was not okay for you to do that. So talk to me about why is that important to start allowing your children to express themselves to you at a younger age, and how that you can switch your mind from thinking this is back talk and looking more at it as a positive way to help grow their confidence.
Well, again, that involves removing yourself from their feelings and their interaction and the situation that they're experiencing. So, mommy, you hurt my feelings. I don't like to hurt anybody's feelings. So, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. I can't believe you would say that. I'm going to give you all these justifications on why I did what I did and why I had to. Whoa. Or you could just say, I'm sorry. Tell me more.
Why is that hard though? Because I'm picturing myself like, you know, okay, like if my children, of course they're adults now, so they say whatever. I mean, they don't say whatever, but they express themselves. And sometimes I have to swallow it. Why is that so hard? You know, especially when they're younger, you know, for us to swallow them saying, you hurt my feelings, or I feel this way. Why is that hard for parents?
We didn't grow up so we have to go back to our beliefs about what children are. Like, what is a child? And defining that. And if your belief is that a child is just this little know nothing, whatever, that I have to shape and mold and turn into a productive member of society, then you feel like everything that you're doing, they should just accept. Anything that they get, they should just be fine with, because you know everything and you're supposed to be the one that knows it all, because that's what parents are, right? We don't make mistakes. Adults don't make mistakes. They're the ones that know everything and are supposed to be raising the children, but the kids know what they're talking about. And so if you believe that a child is a human being who is navigating life and needs guidance, definitely needs guidance, not somebody to, you know, paint them like they're a blank canvas, but they need guidance to become who they're supposed to be, or to stay who they are, so that they can grow up to live out their purpose in life. Then that's a whole different mindset and feeling about what a child is. So we were raised to believe that children were not supposed to speak. Children are to be seen and not heard. They're supposed to just sit still and be quiet. They're supposed to just take whatever they get. Adults are right all the time and kids are wrong all the time. And so it's hard to, if you haven't done the work, to reprocess that and then to practice it multiple times. I put myself in situations where I am wrong, so that my kids can tell me that I was wrong, because I have to practice it. It's hard and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
My daughter hurt my feelings the other day. She said, "Mommy, I wish I had two mommies, one with a better brain, and you could just take naps and, do your work." And I was like, oh,
Oh, wow.
ouch. But she knows that I'm neurodivergent. I'm forgetful as all get out. I try not to make promises that I can't keep, but I'm not perfect. And we talk about that stuff, but that hurt my feelings. But I'm not going to, berate her for how she feels. Yeah, mommy forgets stuff all the time. And that hurts her feelings because we're not doing as many things as she wants to be doing because I forgot.
Yeah, that's good. And you know what? I kind of want to talk on a neurodivergence a little bit for parents who may suffer from that. And if you don't know what neurodivergent is, I kind of want you to explain to that what that means and how that can impact you and your children. Because I have clients, and probably myself, if I'm honest, who have like a touch of ADHD and things like that. They see it in their children and they get frustrated with their children instead of like, if I was to go back and look at especially my son, who I believe have a neurodivergent, which he would deny, I would have worked with him differently. Right. So talk to us about like that neurodivergent in parenthood and how it can reflect on a child, and then what can people do about it?
Yeah. So defining that is a little tough because it's a spectrum. It's a huge spectrum. And that's what it is. Like, I was diagnosed with ADHD, well, ADD at the time, but ADHD now. It's, the forgetfulness, the neurological issues, the executive functioning challenges. So having a hard time with cleaning or cooking or doing things that have multiple steps, not remembering all those things. And a lot of times that's just what kids go through. Like, that's just kids. Their brains are not fully developed, so they're going to be forgetful of things. But if your kid is like hyperactive, or they get bored easily, or they get overstimulated and overwhelmed easily, I wear AirPods just about all day long because I can't handle a lot of loud noises. And so instead of telling my kids all day to shut up, be quiet, I can't handle this, like, oh my gosh, I need you to stop. No, keep being kids. I'm going to deal with my problems by myself.
That's good.
So I wear my, you can get these special earplugs. I'm probably about to get them soon. Get some special earplugs that you can wear to muffle sounds so that you're not so overwhelmed and overstimulated. But people don't realize that, and they just think, oh, I don't like kids. Kids are too loud. They're too noisy. No, you might have a problem. Like, kids are kids. They're people. And this is just a part of what they do. So it can impact a lot with our families. So I have to have so many calendars. I have so many calendars, so many reminders. Everything's color coded. I just bought another weekly magnet calendar for the refrigerator because it has lines and it's more organized. But just making sure that if I say that we're going to do something or I'm going to do something, that I do it. I forget constantly. So I have reminders to look at my reminders because that impacts my kids. Yeah. And it hurts them when I don't follow through, and then they feel like they can't trust people, or you said you were going to do it last time, but are you sure? And then adults get upset about that questioning and that lack of trust, but you caused that. Like, that didn't come from nowhere.
That's what you showed them.
Yeah, it didn't come from nowhere. So I take the blame, I take the fault, and I have to work on these things myself and not try to put that back on them. Well, you all did this and that, so that's why no, it's on you. I have a very hard time with cleaning, so we make it a game when we clean. My kid cleans way better than I do. Way better than I do. My husband luckily loves cleaning, so that's all on him. But I can look at a room and get instantly overwhelmed with, where do I start? What is this supposed to look like at the end? What am I supposed to touch first? How do I put, like, where does all this stuff go? Yeah. I don't know why. Like, that's just a part of the neurodivergence, the executive functioning issues, but that's what it is. Yeah. That's a part of that spectrum. There are a lot of adults that are autistic and don't know it until I think somebody that I know got diagnosed at like 40.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right. So you can live your whole life with this. And I hate when people call it like high functioning and low functioning, because we're all just functioning. It's really about like, do you fit into typical society? We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. So that, like, it's such a wide spectrum, but it includes, autism and ADHD and what else? There are a lot of things that are on the Asperger's, which is a part of autism, but just
Yeah.
there's a lot of things on that spectrum. And I think everybody has a touch of ADHD. Like, the world is moving so fast and we're always constantly, so we've like adapted to doing multiple things at one time, not doing them well. So it's not
Yeah.
always, that's not always the case for everybody, but we've adapted to just being so distracted and ever present in multiple spaces at one time. But yeah, neurodivergence is very challenging in a family. But I always tell people, and again, I had this conversation yesterday as a part of what we talked about yesterday. If you are afraid of doctors or you don't want, the labels, I think the labels are very helpful and very valuable when they are used correctly. If your child gets diagnosed with something, that does not mean that they have to get on medication. If you are diagnosed with something, that does not mean that you have to be on medication or be hospitalized or, be a part of a system that you're afraid of or don't want to be a part of. It does not mean that. It just means that you have the knowledge now to know, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. If your child is dealing with oppositional defiance disorder, you don't want to call them a bad kid. They're not a bad kid. They literally have something going on in their brain that requires different interventions. And now you're equipped with that and you know how to handle it. But if you don't want to diagnose them or understand what's going on, you're going to have the wrong interventions every time. And they're going to suffer because your fear.
And this is where, and that's why I want to talk about really getting into the parent, because, I this show is like for women, really, like we talked about having their authenticity, their power and their purpose. Sometimes though, as parents, we're not dealing with things correctly. If you're a parent, especially a mother, we're not really dealing with things correctly, and we can really punish our kids. My son said the other day, parents don't really understand how what they do creates like these different things in their children, because you responded and reacted this way. He had a trigger moment and he was like, he got so upset, and he said, he was out of town, he had a trigger moment with a child, and he got so upset that, he's texting me like, I'm triggered, right? And I'm like, asking him the therapy questions like, okay, well, what happened? How are you feeling? How's your body respond to this? Which he probably didn't ask for all that, but, I'm being a therapist, and then, and then said, how does it make you feel? And then he go, parents just don't realize the impact of them on their children and how it really can disrupt a child. I mean, he didn't say disrupt, but he used a different language, but how can this really disrupt a child? So I want you to talk to the women, the mothers that's on here, about why it's important for you to develop emotional intelligence so that you can have a successful child, and then tools and techniques to get us there. I know you hit on some things, but take us on a deeper dive on that.
Yeah. So like I said, it all starts with us. And it's a cycle. And so you see the impact of what has happened from your childhood or from a child's childhood to their adulthood. Anytime somebody's having a really big emotional outburst in, a calm setting, I'm like, oh, what happened in your childhood? Like, what, you can't trust your team, so you're micromanaging. What happened in your childhood that you have this lack of trust? Like, what happened to you? Where did that, break happen? And how can you resolve that so that you can get back to being your true authentic self? It was beaten out of us as children, our authenticity.
Oh,
because we had to fit into a structure and a system and society that was not built for us. Society is not built for kids, really. And so from birth, we are told that we need to have a sleep schedule. What? No. We're weaned off of things too early. We're fed too early. Like, we have to fit a system. And so when we become adults, all of that has been taken so far out of us. We're told we can't be certain things, or, oh, that's out of your reach. I don't care about that as your parent. So we're not going to deal with that, even though that's your passion. And so those things are taken out of you, and you spend the rest of your adult life trying to get back to that, paying professionals like me and you, trying to get back to that.
Yeah.
You spend the rest of your life wishing that you were as you were when you were born, because we were born with all of who we were supposed to be. It was just taken out of us. And so as an adult, it is so important for you to not do that to your kids, to allow them to have their own emotional experiences and life experiences, and to remove yourself from those experiences so that they can figure out and navigate with support,
Mm.
how to deal with that in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And so some things that we can do, practicing regular self-care, like putting that as a part of your normal everyday life, instead of it being, okay, I'm going to a spa for the weekend. No, like, go take a walk, open the window and breathe in fresh air for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Do something small for yourself every single day. Do the big things when you can, but do little things for yourself every day. I set boundaries with my kids. Again, they're 2 and 6. I set boundaries with them. Privacy in the bathroom. So privacy, please. Those are our words. My 6-year-old will say that to me now. Privacy, please. Yep. Close the door. I got you. My bad. I won't come back in there. But you teach them boundaries. Mommy needs a minute to herself. I will be with you shortly.
Yeah.
Teach them boundaries so that they learn that they're allowed to have boundaries too. Allow them to speak up for themselves so that when they get older, they're not put in compromising situations and feel like they can't speak up for themselves because they never were allowed to.
Yes.
This adult is trying to do something to me, but I'm not allowed to say anything to adults because they're always right.
Mm.
Don't do that to them.
Mm-mm.
Let them have their voice and show yourself using your voice too.
Mm-hmm.
Model the behaviors that you want to see from them. If you want them to speak calmly when they're mad, learn how to speak calmly when you're mad.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn how to get regulated in yourself and not be so dysregulated all day long. If you're sensitive to noise, fix that in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make them shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to get them to be quiet, because kids aren't quiet.
This is good. I hope that y'all have like y'all pen and your paper and y'all like taking your notes and writing this down, because it, like, in a nutshell, it's really about you. It's, like, really being able to regulate your own emotions and having that emotional intelligence to pass down to your children so that you're able to have successful children in your life. And I'm telling you, if I can go back and if I knew this stuff, I would change so much. I am trying to learn as they are adults to kind of be more open and expressive, but they're mirrors of me, right? Like, they're mirrors. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I need to fix this still, although they're adults, because it's mirroring me. I'm like, I don't want to be this way, right?
Yeah.
So I am so grateful that you are here. I mean, we can keep talking for like 2 more hours. I know we can, and we'll probably do something else. I know we're going to do more together. I know that, we have a God connection, but that's besides the point. Yeah. But I would love for you to tell people how they can find you, where you are, and all the good stuff about you.
Yeah, so I'm on all social platforms at SomoCom Lab, SOMOCOMLAB. And my website is somocomlab.com. Now, one of the things you did not do, I know I kind of talked about your bio, but tell us about your game. Like, this is like, when I tell you, I feel like I know a famous person. Listen, I just see Chelsea International. Tell us about your game. So the card game is called the EQ Kids Crew, and I made it for little Chelsea and all the kids, during the pandemic when things were so unpredictable. And I think it kind of took me back to that place where it's like, you don't know what every day is going to look like. You have no clue what's happening, and everything is really confusing. The adults are running around all scared and anxious, and all the kids have felt our anxiety. And so you're seeing that in schools now, kids just anxious as all get out. And so I created this game after I wrote 2 books for my oldest daughter as a way to help expand emotional vocabularies so that they have more, words to use than just feeling angry or sad. Like, they might be feeling vulnerable or disappointed. And the more words they have, the less likely they're going to throw a tantrum. The more words they have and that you have, the more likely you're going to be able to connect with each other in those areas and resolve issues more healthy, in a more effective way. Yeah. And so while I was doing that, I kind of used my oldest as a tester. I was pregnant with my youngest and had my oldest. And during the pandemic, she was used to being at school, and then mom and dad are working from home full time. And so she's just stuck doing nothing all day. And I would notice that she would get real rowdy at certain times. So I'm like, okay, let's move over here. Let's go downstairs. We got a trampoline. Like, let's jump out some of this energy. Let's go outside. Let's, moving to different environments. But I was giving her words while I was doing that kind of stuff. And it helped so much with how she was feeling about things. She's very anxious now, like me. And so it's annoying and it's irritating, but I'm trying to help her navigate that because it's a reflection of me. And, we really can't stand a lot of the stuff in our kids that are us. Yeah. They are us. or the things that we've tried so hard to work out of us, it's still there. So that was why I created that game, and it is international at this point, and it has helped a lot of families and a lot of schools. A lot of educators have been like, oh, finally, a resource that we can just put into whatever we're doing already. Or it could be a standalone resource, but I've had people use it in all kinds of amazing ways that I'm still in awe. Like, just heard yesterday another way that somebody was using it. I was like, that's so cool. Like, that's awesome. So yeah, it's been it was definitely a God thing, but this is definitely my purpose and what I was meant to do in life. So I'm grateful for that.
And I want, if you're a parent, a teacher, any type of educator, whether you're a teacher, principal, or whatever, even a therapist, this is a good tool to use for children to help them regulate their emotions. So please go to her website and grab that today, because I know it will be very impactful, and it's going to be international. So you want to grab it now. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, but I want you to grab it now, because I really see it just traveling the world. So, well, thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable. Like, really opening up and being vulnerable with your gift that God has given you. Like, I love that he gave you this idea and you have ran with it. I mean, you have grown so much. Listen, when me and Chelsea used to work together in her first day at work, it was like we've known each other for 10 years. We were just chatting it up. And so we have been connected ever since. And I think that was what, like
2016.
Yeah. So since 2016, so we're very close, and I just really appreciate you and see so much growth. And I'm so honored to have you on the Empowerment TV show. And I just want the audience to really go to follow her right now, get her stuff, and just stay connected. So don't just go to her page and look, click the following link so that you're able to stay connected with her, especially if you have children, because I know that this is just the beginning. So make sure you're following her. So thank you so much, Chelsea. I so appreciate you. And to my audience, remember how important it is for you to remain authentic in your power and your purpose. Take care. We'll see you next time.